white people have nothing to do with it. We just don't want to be around. But here you are on an African panel. That's crazy. Big step of FBA Rod. You guys are so lame. FBA Rock, FBA Rod. You would think that FBA was your first name. Yeah, he's around. You know? Undeplorable. Undeportable? Is that? Okay. Denaturalize people. Okay. Well, we're gonna tell that to the former slave master, bro. Come up, come up, come up, Rod. You guys are so flashy about the 14th Amendment. Forgot about the 13th. You forgot about the 13th, bro. Good morning, Rock Nation.
What up, dude?
How's it going, dude?
I'm fine, yo. I can't read the bottom of your prompt because like our our comments is blocking it. I want to read the bottom of your I want to read the bottom of your prompt.
Mm. Yeah, I'm gonna have to shrink it. I'm trying it out. Here, give me a sec.
Back to it. Hey, yo, Rod, it's not. Listen, these people think that we really on that Democrat plantation, and they think our minds are so colonized that we will never think for ourselves,
Are you
let alone put
narrating?
ourselves
Are you
first.
narrating on my live, bro?
Nah, I'm addressing
These
the comment.
people.
These people, because it's just not white tea people. who have your
Alright.
viewpoints.
Rock, give me your race, your ethnicity, where you're from.
Well, if we get into race, bro, you will start deflecting. So I don't want to do that. But what I will do is that I'm gonna tell you I'm a Black American, a foundational Black American, and I'm from Rochester, New York, right?
Oh, is that what rock is about?
Yeah, there you go.
So you said a race and you said a nationality. I don't know if it's recognized as a ethnicity quite yet, but I hope you guys get it for sure. You want
But
to answer? You want to
go
answer
ahead.
one of the questions? I'm gonna have to mute you, guy. You have a lot of background noise. FBA Rock, do you want to answer one of the questions? Can you read it
Well,
now?
first, yeah. Well, I could read the 14th Amendment one. Well, first, like the first and foremost, we all have to come to the same consensus of who who authorized the Constitution, and obviously it was the dominant society, what will be Europeans, who gave us, and they really didn't give us. They were really protecting the federal dollar that was being generated around that time. And they were really trying to not be undermined by other people who were coming over claiming land, like the French and like the Spaniard who was coming over claiming land. So when they start doing
What
this,
year? What year we talk about,
guys,
Rock? What year?
I, I'm talking like 1700s, right? Before we get into the 1800s, talking about like 1700s is when like uh, we really get into like the the real push for Western expansion, the real push for a state currency, because each colony had their own currency. If you didn't know that, when we talk about actual like physical money being exchanged, and because we had the French and the Spaniards over here, all this currency was flowing, so they really didn't know. They really didn't understand how to process taxes back then either.
So what was the dollar backed by back then, Rock?
Well, depending on what region you were in, right? If you were like on the upper East Coast, that's like the Boston, New York area, um, the dollar was really backed by gold and assets. As you come down more towards the southern part, which would be your Georgia, which would be your Georgia, Florida, South Carolina, a lot of your or some would say Spaniard regions around that time, money was more backed by gold, and it was more backed by your army that you had on the ground. Because these people still had like army camps on U.S. soil. So when the
Uh,
constant so
they
when the
had what?
Constitution
They had
they
what
had
now, Rock?
they had how can I put this? I don't want to say like like us Americans, we have what you call it again? We occupy places outside of America. What is it called again? When we occupy space?
Residency.
No. What army? Army bases. Like there were Spanish and French army bases here on American soil.
Right. You had
Right.
colonies. You had the Spanish
Uh-huh.
first. Yeah.
So remember, these are different currencies
Oh,
being
jurisdictions.
there. Yep, these are different currencies being exchanged. So And once again, but my whole point being
I don't think
is
the
that
dollar existed back then, Rock.
no, it was being formulated though. U.S. currency was being formulated back then though. If you understand what I'm saying, like how do we get to a dollar? Is what I'm trying to say.
My whole thing is former slave masters are the face of the bill.
Yeah, slavery was assets was a currency. Like I don't look at I don't look at slavery as a non-money thing. Slavery was an asset. Like you were an asset to a company.
Our bodies were the market. We were the labor. You know.
Yes, yes. I that's something we agree on.
So can you answer one of the questions, Rock, please?
Well, the first question with the 14th Amendment, they took the power. Nobody gave them the power. They took the power through everything imaginable, conceded to take power. They have done that. And when I mean they, I'm talking about the British colony and a lot of other YT nations who have came together to create this nation have took it on their own. Right? That's number one. That's who gave it. They took it. And then for the 13th Amendment, I can't read the rest of it because it's like cut off.
Yeah, I was going to say the right one and the bottom one are cut off, so it's hard for
Yeah,
me to read too.
can you move our boxes to like the right corner and like have yours like on Showtime? Okay, there we go.
I'm trying. Okay, so first, okay, let's start with the first question to both of you. If the 14th Amendment says all persons born, thereof, uh, oh my God, who gave the government the power to decide who ought to be, that should be ought to be, like the sole proprietor of the 14th Amendment? We know it was done for enslaved Africans or Black Americans. But like, why does it say all persons born?
It says it because once again you had over seven white nations on this landmass. Like pilgrims are just not the real Americans. You had different Americans of different white nations on this land who were escaping persecution from their own nation. So it really supposed to encompass those white people who settled first, then came us people who were in bondage second. But it really supposed to cover y'all first when it comes down to taxation and it comes down to being able to flee um, your white nation laws that put y'all into a work bondage. If you understand what I'm saying.
I heard you say flee now, FBA. We fled, right?
Oh, y'all. I mean, do I guys go into more history of how some of your
No,
nations was horrible to your
you
citizens?
you good, Rock. You good.
Oh, okay.
Chris, do you mind answering the same question, please?
Yeah, so the first question, you're saying who gave the power, who gave the government the power? The phrasing is interesting. It was voted on, of course. So I would argue that the people at the time gave the government the power. And I mean, it's not really giving government the power. It's more saying, I mean, it's an amendment, right? So it's saying that the government can't infringe upon that right, just to be clear. Like the Second Amendment or the First, right? Similar. So maybe I'm misunderstanding the phrasing of the question, but we can move on to the next one if you want to.
What you answered the 14th Amendment question?
Yeah.
Okay. And you said, well, now I'm sorry, for all
You're
persons born.
you're good. Yeah, I'm trying to understand the phrasing, but I heard what
Yeah.
you said earlier.
Mhm.
I mean, who gave the government the power? It was voted on by the states at the time and the Congress, or the Congress at the time. And who gave the government the power? Amendments are more, these rights are more about what the government can and can't infringe upon. So it's more about now the majority can't decide that like you can't have a gun or your free speeches can be messed with. That's all these amendments are about, right? It's not about giving government power. It's more about honestly taking it away from them, big air quotes around them. But
So they or them are limiting their own power through the Constitution and these amendments?
I mean, the people of the time voted for this amendment, and it means that the government can't just infringe upon it.
What people, Chris? What people, Chris?
The people of America at the time that could vote at the time.
Okay. Who created the Constitution, Chris?
Who created the founding fathers, I guess? What do you mean?
Yeah, just the Constitution, like, and its amendments.
Yeah, I mean, they added a system to make amendments, and to get an amendment passed is very difficult. And the people at the time, when the 14th Amendment happened, were able to get it done.
What people, Chris?
Americans. I don't understand the question.
Okay.
I genuinely don't. I'm not trying to be rude. I don't get what you're saying.
I mean, who was ruling at the time? Who was running shit at the time? Was it Black Americans that created the Constitution?
That created the Constitution? It wasn't. It was a group of Anglo-Saxons that left England. I don't understand what you mean.
Well, I'm just asking. If you know,
Yeah.
you know. If you don't, you don't.
Americans created the Constitution.
Well, Native Americans, they
What?
formulated something that was stolen from them.
Native
And
American.
they,
Maybe we're using Native Americans differently than I've used it before.
yeah, it was just like rewritten in English, but it facilitated look it up, Chris. But those are just the origins
Chris,
of
look
the
it up.
Constitution. Stop
the
it,
street statistics.
Raphael. You gotta mute up. Hold up. But to be sincere, Chris,
Mm-hmm.
so when the 14th Amendment was created, Donald Trump says it was meant for the children of slaves, right?
Okay.
Have you heard that?
I mean, regardless of what Donald Trump says, that was one of the reasons that it was given. Yes.
Right. And everything came about after the 14th Amendment, like naturalization, birthright, citizenship, right?
Yeah.
And everybody was afforded rights, including the white tea woman, Eastern Europeans, and then African Americans as well. But they weren't just like
Chris, this is some real shit. You better
they were.
listen, buddy.
Hold on, Raphael. So I'm saying
Yeah, I'm trying to get what you're saying. I really am. I'm not following
no,
what you're trying to
it's
say.
okay. It's okay. So just back to all persons born. I'm just really narrowing the aspect about why people think the 14th Amendment was solely for Black Americans, and why Black Americans always press this. We created we let everybody in by the 14th Amendment, and everybody has to thank us because we let everybody in. Everybody got civil rights through the 14th Amendment.
I mean, that's just not true, obviously, because the 19th Amendment exists. So clearly, they didn't really get women did not get civil rights from the 14th Amendment. So if someone says that to you, I hope you clock them on that. But
All right. Chris, can I get your race, your ethnicity, where you're from, please?
I live in New York City. I'm not from here. I'm 29. I'm black, and I think that's it, right? Maybe.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
that's fair. And what is the 19th Amendment for those who don't know?
Oh, I apologize. It's just women's right to vote. I'm sorry.
It's women's rights, Chris?
Yeah, women's right to vote. That's what that's the 19th Amendment is.
Oh, okay, gotcha. All right, Chris, hang in there. I
Yeah,
have
no
the
problem.
13th Amendment for you next, but let's go with Daki.
Yeah.
Go ahead,
Yeah.
introduce yourself, please. Race, ethnicity, where you're from.
Yeah, I'm Dakota. My race is Caucasian, and I'm from Michigan.
Oh man, this is a black space, but I'll let
Oh
you
shit, my bad.
I'll let you take a stab at it. Go ahead.
Okay, the 14th Amendment. I feel like we kind of, the way we, moved Native Americans out of America was like, or moved them to different spots, kind of violated the whole human rights thing, and that's why we kind of created the 14th Amendment. You know what I'm saying?
Wait, repeat that one more time. Oh, he's out of here. Okay. All right, that's the last time, guys. All right. I don't know why people just get to come on up. I think I fucked up on some kind of setting where it just allows people to come up. All right. 88.
What's up?
Good morning.
Morning.
Race, ethnicity, where you're from.
I'm from California.
What's your race and ethnicity? Race, ethnicity. Okay. All right, FBA. We're gonna have some crazy people coming up. All right. Do you want to take a stab at the second question?
Yeah. I mean, first, I don't understand. Okay, I, the last dude you had a nice little conversation with, I didn't understand why he just couldn't say white people. I mean, my fault, white tea people. I love to talk shop. I don't understand why he couldn't say white tea people made the Constitution. That was weird. Second, the second thing I want to get into is that I don't really think he understands the timeline from when the Constitution was made and when the 13 and 14 um, amendments were made, because these are like a good 40 years, 50 years apart, right? And the 13th Amendment was it was made just after the Civil War. If I'm
What's up, buddy?
Sorry, Rock. What were you saying? Okay. FBA, you there?
I'm right here.
So you were addressing who?
Okay. The first I was addressing the dude that you just the guy you just went back and forth with, who was not trying to address the fact that pale Europeans were, in charge of creating the Constitution. He didn't want to give you that fact. He didn't want to even say it. That's one. Then I'm addressing your 13th Amendment and how is it a loophole and how it's been used very unfairly and how it's been exploited. Um, and how
Yeah.
people don't even
Go
think the
ahead.
13th Amendment people don't even think the 13th Amendment is even for enslaved um Americans that were here, well, enslaved people that were here. People really think that that amendment is for everybody, but it's not. It's really for us people who comes from chattel slavery, because the bill was made in 1864. The right was the amendment was made in 1865. That's right after our civil WAR.
Right. So it was kind of like a setup, after freeing the African American. Like it was just like another trap right? Like it says like a loophole, right?
Right,
But you're
but
saying
you
it
got to
was
be.
like intended for them specifically.
It's like, but you got to be careful with the term African American because, from my understanding, it was more than just African Americans that were enslaved here on the American coast, right? You have indigenous tribes who had enslaved people. You know, you had the French who had enslaved people here. You had the Spanish who had enslaved people here. So it was just more than just Africans that were enslaved here, right?
Right, right. But I think that was the terminology then, you know. But you're saying like black people in general, or all melanated people.
No, I'm saying for those who were here I'm specifically there were those who were here in America fighting chattel slavery because there was slavery everywhere. Like slavery is an asset. So back then it was capital. So
Right.
and I'm not
Anybody?
condoning. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
I'm
anybody could
saying
have been.
anybody could be enslaved, is what you're
Yes,
saying.
anybody. Yes, anybody could have been enslaved. Because there's people who are is you have people who think the Irish was enslaved back then. So it's really it's a really complex thing, but to really look at it and give it a real like direct look, it was for those who really was a part of chattel slavery because we was the ones who fought in the civil WAR to even get that amendment because a lot of their children wouldn't be considered citizens. We were still not citizens on these on this land or territory at the time.
Right, but essentially anybody can fall into being in prison, right, or being enslaved again through the 13th Amendment. But maybe it was for specific people at the time. Is that what you're saying? When it was created?
Yeah, true, because you still had Native Americans here who didn't see themselves as Africans, and then that who were enslaved, like who went through chattel slavery just like an African, who were on certain plantations, knowing their history, knowing where they come from, and they didn't see themselves as that, but they had to breed in because we had breeding farms here, right? So that's why I said it gets a little convoluted because of the breeding farm situation, because of a lot of these civilizations were sacked and stripped of history. But to make it plain, right, to make it super plain and easy, right, from my understanding, when they were coming up with the 13th Amendment, it was the ultimate caveat for us not to get reparations. Just being a citizen on this land was supposed to be our reparations. And that's why when you get somebody who is a foreigner to this land and they come over here, they could tell us Black Americans or foundational Black Americans that, you already got your reparations and that is your citizenship here.
I'm sorry, Rock. What was the form of reparations? I heard you. My bad. I'm just
No, the
lost.
13th Amendment is our reparation. A lot of if you talk to anybody who's a foreigner who's coming in, they will be comfortable enough to say, listen, Black Americans and Black Americans and foundational Black Americans, you already got your reparations, and that is your citizenship here. That's why they could get on microphones like Candace Owens and be comfortable with saying we don't need reparations.
So,
I
do you
mean,
think that was like a just thing, the 14th Amendment? Like that was it? Like that is a form of reparations? That's interesting to hear.
I
In the
mean,
sense that like I've never
you never
heard.
heard it that way, huh?
Yeah.
But but
But I
this,
mean,
go
then
ahead.
came Jim Crow and black
Uh-huh.
codes, like
Uh
100 years of not being recognized,
huh. Uh huh.
right? Even though we got civil rights. Let's go. Let's talk about the 14th Amendment. So let's talk about the consequences of the 14th Amendment. It says all persons born in the United States are citizens. It does not say descendants of slaves only. It doesn't say only certain groups. It says all persons. That language wasn't accidental. It was written broadly on purpose because lawmakers already knew if you start naming groups, you can start excluding groups. So, historically, it was passed in 1868 after slavery to secure citizenship for formerly enslaved black people. That's true. That part is very true. But here's the part people keep skipping. Just because something was created with you in mind does not mean you were the only one that it applied to, even the first to benefit from it. Because what happened after 1868, black Americans were still segregated, disfranchised, strange fruited, locked out of voting, forced into sharecropping. So if the 14th Amendment was for so-called black people, then why didn't black people actually receive full protection under it for almost 100 years? Meanwhile, other groups, white women, European immigrants, were able to integrate into the system faster and access rights more consistently. So the law existed, but enforcement was selective. And that's the pattern that I think people need to understand before we start cheering for the government to reinterpret the 14th Amendment. Now let's go to the 13th Amendment. Everybody says slavery ended in 1865, but you have to read the fine print. Slavery was abolished, but there was an exception, for punishment of a crime. So they pretty much had to like criminalize your behavior to re-enslave you. That exception clause is the foundation of convict leasing, what they call chain gangs, and mass incarceration. So why has it been disproportionately targeted under that system? Who is that? Black Americans. So if the system already found a legal workaround to continue forced labor through the 13th Amendment, why would you trust that same system not to find a workaround, like a workaround through the 14th? That's the part nobody wants to sit with. So let's go a little forward here. When you hear arguments about ending birthright citizenship, it's framed like this is about correcting the Constitution. This is about immigrants. This is about fairness, they always say. But you have to ask yourself, when has restricting rights ever stopped at just one group? History says it doesn't. It starts with the most vulnerable, then expands. So, I mean, when we're talking about the immigrants, it's really about labor, because this is the thing people are missing right here. America has always needed cheap labor. Now that they don't have their, enslaved populations to work for free. It's controlled labor and replaceable labor. From slavery to convict leasing. I hope you guys know what convict leasing is. I'll break it down a little bit. To the Barciano program. I don't know if you guys know that as well. This is the same program that they're going to allow the Mexican immigrants to immigrate back or come back and be in a certain program where they get housing, food, just to work. So it's another form of slavery. If you know about the Barciano program, look it up. It happened in the early 1900s, I believe. They deported like 1 million Mexicans back to Mexico. Like when this was Mexico, by the way. When people say undocumented workers are taking jobs, they're ignoring something obvious. The system depends on that labor. So they say, like, why punish the worker, but not the employer, right? And the goal is to eliminate the labor. That's why they do it. The goal is to keep labor cheap, controlled, and disposable. So if you can redefine who's a citizen, you can redefine who gets rights, who gets protections, who can be excluded. And once you open that door up, it doesn't close neatly. So again, does limiting birthright citizenship help Black Americans? That's the question we're going to ask. I mean, by limiting somebody's, like, citizenship, does it help Black Americans? I would say no. The legal framework, citizenship becomes a conditional. Definitions can change, protection can shrink, and historically the protections do shrink. Black Americans have been among the first to feel it, not because of theory, because of this pattern that keeps happening. So, the system can say these children don't qualify as citizens. What stops it from saying later that these citizens don't qualify for full rights? Once they get to interpret the 14th Amendment and rewrite it and reinterpret it, who knows what else may lie at that. So, like we talked about, like, things can change, like with felony disenfranchisement, over policing, surveillance. So the idea that it stops with immigrants is not supported by history. We all know that. About solidarity versus division, every major gain in U.S. history comes from coalition, pressure, collective movements. So solidarity, like, all you're doing is like burning bridges with the rest of the groups. The civil rights didn't happen in isolation. Divide and conquer is their main goal. So, who deserves rights more is the question. Because instead of expanding rights, people start arguing over who to exclude. Okay, I'm just gonna get to it, guys. Let me read some. amendments. I really need to check my who gets to be allowed to come up. It looks like anybody can come up. Shit, I got cold.
But I'm moving down here somewhere.
I'm gonna mute you, Catherine. You got a crazy background noise. Looks like FBA, I forgot his name. FBA something. I'm hitting the likes. It is cold this morning. Okay. Donald Trump says the 14th Amendment was for the children of slaves. Like, it's some kind of got you moment when he says that, too. But, he's really just pitting people against one another when he says that. Him being a German, by the way. The 14th Amendment came out of slavery and Reconstruction. It was meant to secure citizenship for the formerly enslaved after the country spent generations stealing labor, stealing language, lineage, bloodlines. That part is true, but what we keep doing is letting somebody like Trump take that history, flatten it, weaponize it, and feed it back to you as anti-immigrant propaganda. And some of you guys so hungry to feel that chosen by America for once that you'll repeat it without noticing you're carrying water for the same machinery that has always turned around and crushed black people the second it was done using them, The 13th Amendment abolished slavery except as a punishment for crime. That exception is not a typo. That except, quote, is the trapdoor. That exception is how slavery got rewritten instead of ended. That exception is how plantations turned into prisons, overseers turned into guards, slave patrol logic turned into modern policing, and black labor kept getting extracted under a new legal custom. Convict leasing, chain gangs, prison forms, forced labor, underpaid labor, and cage labor. All of that grew out of this 13th Amendment loophole. So before anybody starts acting like the Constitution is some pure, holy shield that protects them, maybe read about where it already left the door wide open for black people to be recaptured, re-enslaved through criminalization. That's so the whole birthright citizenship talk can get kind of dangerous. It's not just about immigrants, it's about precedent. It's about state testing how far it can go and redefining who belongs, who counts, who gets full protection, who can get pushed outside the circle of rights. And if you think government that built this, as well as Jim Crow, mass incarceration, and police terrorists, suddenly doing a careful little constitutional correction just for your benefit, then you are not studying power. You are You're daydreaming about it. Power does not narrow rights for one vulnerable group and then stop out of kindness. This is not how American history works. It starts with the people it thinks it can get away with targeting. Then it widens the gap. So when you hear people like cheering for Trump, trying to narrow the meaning of the 14th Amendment, what they are really cheering is the government reclaiming the right to decide whose birth counts. And once you normalize that principle, you already lost the deeper argument, because then citizenship starts being a guarantee and starts becoming a permission slip. and Black American, of all people, should know what happens when your existence in this country becomes conditioned, delayed, qualified, or interpreted by hostile institutions. Black people had the 14th Amendment on paper in 1868 and still got terrorized for generations after. So don't miss me with all that that this alone is going to save you. Don't tell me the amendment alone saves you. If the state can twist enforcement, delay enforcement, or invent exceptions, then the law becomes one more weapon in the hands of whatever has the power to interpret it. And that is where some of this rhetoric falls apart, because some people are acting like if immigrants lose protections, Black Americans somehow will rise. That's a lie. That is plantation logic. That is the politics of scarcity talking. That is the old trick of handing one exploited group a badge and telling them they're better than the next exploited group, while the people at the top keep the land, keep the capital, keep the institutions, keep the police, keep the borders, keep the jails, keep the courts, keep the schools, keep the banks, and keep everybody fighting over crumbs on the table. You do not become free because somebody else got pushed lower than you. You do not become safe because somebody else got called illegal. You do not become powerful because you healed the state practice inclusion on a more, my phone's broken. A more deplorable target for us, maybe? Oh. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the labor piece, because that's the part people keep dancing around. America always needs a workforce it can overwork, underpay, and discipline. Always. That's not an accident. That's the business model. Enslaved Africans, convict leasing, sharecropping, migrant labor, prison labor, different centuries, same appetite. The names change, the function stays familiar. This country works workers with fewer protections and more, I can't read this word. And if you can mark a whole class of people as deplorable, disposable, of rightless, then you can squeeze labor out of them cheaper. That's by going after undocumented workers while barely touching the employees, while making profits off them is such an obvious scam. The workers get demonized, the boss keeps eating. That should tell you everything. And no, that does not mean undocumented workers are literally slaves in the exact historical legal sense. Precision matters, but it does mean the system creates cohesive labor conditions. It means people are trapped by threat, by fear, by means I'm sorry, by status, by silence, by wage theft, by dangerous work conditions, by the constant possibility that speaking up will get them removed. And any black person that understands how criminalization has been used against them should instantly recognize the structure. The categories are different. The logic is familiar. A vulnerable class gets created. That class gets blamed. That class gets exploited. Then the public gets told it's law and order. So now back to the 14th Amendment timeline, because this is where the selective memory needs to be corrected. The 13th Amendment was ratified in 1865, the 14th in 1868, the 15th in 1870. On paper, that looks like progress, stacked on progress, but what happened in practice? Black codes happened, terror campaigns, segregation, disenfranchisement, massacres, convict leasing, sharecropping, Jim Crow. So if somebody says the 14th Amendment was for us, the proper response is, then why was America still finding 1,000 ways around it? Why were black people still denied full personhood in practice? Why did other groups often access the benefits of American belonging more quickly than black people had, who had to bleed for every inch? That history should make black people skeptical of state representation. Not excited by it.
mi amor. Póngale a verla allá abajo, ve. Toma. Toma. Póngale allá abajo para que se estacione.